Okay, it's being live streamed. Got it. Okay,
Yes,
there we are.
Hold on. I just think that. Right, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Right, okay. Hello everybody, this is Debbie from Teacher Success Coach with another session of the Female Educators Roundtable. And today on Fridays, we'll be looking at home education / homeschooling. And the question I'm asking is, home education much more powerful than the traditional education? And as we know, the traditional education, in my view, yes, I'm an educator, I do not feel that it's fit for purpose. And I do not feel that it prepares children for the world outside there and the world of work. So today we have another home educator who I'm really excited to introduce, because she's actually have 4 children and she's doing the home education with all of them. And it's just so fantastic. So people realize that you do not have to send your child to the traditional education. Homeschooling have a lot more to, much more tailored to your child's need. Yes, in this classroom, we have 27 to 30. If you're lucky, you have 27 children. But in most cases, we're talking about 30, 32. Well, just imagine if you have to be spending the time to give your child individual attention, how much more that child would thrive. Plus, you are actually tailoring to the child's need. Plus, the child is studying what they like to do, not what the system is programming them to do. And anyway, you guys like to talk. Before I continue, let's introduce my new guest. But introduce yourself and tell us about, yourself, etc., and why you've actually started this journey.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Right, so my name's Nosheen. I've been homeschooling since day one. So my eldest is now 13. She's never been to nursery, never been to preschool. So yeah, I've been home educating since the beginning. Like Debbie, I'm also a qualified teacher, so I have had experience working in schools. And it was partly due to my own experience as a teacher in schools and what I observed. That was one of the reasons why I decided to homeschool my own children. So kind of from what Debbie was saying about the ratio of teachers to children, like, realistically, there's about, 27 to 30 children, sometimes even a little bit more. And I mean, like I was mentioning to Debbie before, there's some fantastic teachers out there. There's some teachers who do brilliant jobs, and they're really passionate about their job. And I mean, I loved teaching when I was in schools. However, I felt that there was children who needed that one-to-one, support. Whether it was, whether they were more able than the rest and they needed challenging, or, a child who wasn't so able and they needed that specific support that even an SEN teacher, wasn't able to provide. And I felt for these children, because I thought, it's near impossible for me to cater my teaching methods to each and every child in the way that, it would suit them best. So, so I decided to go on this journey. And when I began, I didn't know anything about homeschooling. I didn't know it even existed. And I came across these brilliant blogs from, these that were set up by American women who had numerous children. And I thought, wow, these children look so carefree. They, they're able to do what they want and how they want. They're able to learn how they want. And they look so happy. So I think it was really important to be able to tailor a child's education to their strengths, to what they enjoy, to their needs. And I felt teaching in school, a lot of the time there's no quality in their learning. So for me, I think home education, main sort of reasons why I chose to homeschool, because I wanted to enable my child and my children to learn at their own pace that suited them best. And I look back, and my eldest, so when I was starting to teach her how to read basic phonics, she was so keen, and she was an avid reader, and she was an early reader. She began reading chapter books from the age of 4. And when my second daughter came along, I started sort of using the same methods with her, but she just didn't want to learn. She wasn't ready to learn. And no matter how much I tried, I just felt like, you know, it took me years to kind of, you know, get her to understand digraphs. Like, she just couldn't understand it. And I really pushed and I pushed. And then I just thought to myself, you know what, hang on, hold up. I need to take a step back, because I realized that she wasn't like my firstborn. She was different. Okay, her pace of learning was completely different. And I realized that, you know what, I can't do this. And I think having that sort of, being in that sort of teacher mode of school, I thought to myself that I need to do X, Y, and Z, just like I did with my first child. But I took a step back and I literally gave up. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to just let her be. Okay, I'm going to let her be. I'm going to let her explore and decide when she, let her decide for herself when she thinks she's ready. And I'm sure I'll pick up on the signs. So I took a step back from trying to teach her to read, and I took her to museums, I took them on trips, we explored, we went, you know, in the forest, we went foraging, I took her to the library. So every week, I think 2-3 times a week, I would take them to the library, and she just started opening the books herself. She started looking at these books and, you know, pointing to things and saying to me, and then eventually she became so enthusiastic about books, and that's when I knew, okay, I'm going to try again. And I took it slowly with her. And, you know, although she was a late reader compared to my firstborn, she loves reading now. She's 11 years old and she absolutely loves reading. She wants to read the latest books. We've got a big library in our house. So that was one of the beauties of being able to homeschool, was that I was able to go at her pace. And, you know, and I was able to see that my child wasn't ready for, you know, this. And I was able to make that choice for her and, you know, allow her to explore other things before, you know, taking that step with her. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of the best things about homeschooling, that you're able to, you know, go at their pace and instill a love of learning in them before anything else. You know, instill that love of books, that love of reading, that love of whatever it is before actually exploring it more deeply with them. So, yeah, and also one of the other reasons I chose to homeschool, because I thought that I could teach beyond the curriculum, you know. So yeah,
I like that one.
You know, especially when it came to history. I mean, we've explored the history of Japan, the history of Brazil, Spain, Turkey. You know, we're not limited to learning about British history. Or whatever it is, you know. So, you know, my kids know so much about, you know, Japanese, like the samurai and the history of the samurai. And I just think it's so fascinating, the fact that they've been able to learn this, and that, you know, and how many weeks we were able to choose how long to spend on this topic as well. Like, we did 12 to 14 weeks solely on Japan, and that was it. And we loved it. And we've been on trips. I took them to the Japan house. You know, we went to various exhibitions to do with this topic. And it's just, you know, I really think homeschooling allows experiential learning. You know, it's not just bound to books and being at a desk. You can take them out. The learning can happen anywhere. So yeah, I mean, homeschool allows you to facilitate lots of areas of learning, and, you know, and it's, you know, and also you can incorporate whatever you want, whether it's, you know, character building, for example, or, you know, if you want to incorporate faith in your, you know, in your learning. So yeah, you know, there's so much that you can incorporate and choose, you know, what to teach, when to teach, and how you want to teach it. So yeah, that's many of the reasons why I chose. And yeah.
Wow, that is so fascinating, right? Thank you for that. The most fascinating aspect of that is going beyond the curriculum, and also teaching at the child's pace. Right now, I'm in one of these schools, and it's paining me because I know that there's some of the children who need extra help, and I'm not able to give them that extra help because the time doesn't allow to, because I'm taking over from a teacher who, you know, who left them a little way behind. So I'm now needing to catch up. And while I'm trying to catch up, there's some of them I realize that I have to pull to come with me, because I don't want to leave them too far behind. Because whereas if you're homeschooling your child, you're going to teach them according to the pace. Because one of the most fascinating things you said, your daughter, because you were in the teacher mode, because you're thinking, the first one did it like this, the second one have to do it like this. But when you step back and you decide to look at it from a homeschooling perspective, which you want to do, you realize, hold on, you know what, just let it be. Because initially you had the teacher hat on.
Exactly.
And the teacher hat was saying that, you know, you have to do it this way, this way, this way. We programmed. So therefore we have to do it very methodically. And as I said to my student, I'm not one of these program teacher. I'm really out of the box because programming doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And the amount of times I've had to chop and change my routine just to suit the kids. I think in school you aren't able to do this. And when I first started homeschooling, obviously coming from the whole, you know, being in a school and having that teacher hat on, I tried to replicate school in my home, and it was a failure. And I just thought, I can't do this. I was ripping my hair out. Literally, I was like, I literally had my timetable was so elaborate, just like school. And I just thought, realistically, and you know, it wasn't working. And I thought, I'm scrapping it. I'm going to go at the child's pace and do more child-led sort of learning and just go with the flow. And, you know, that way I enjoyed it, they enjoyed it. And we really, you know, made memories and experienced learning together. So yeah, it's been a great journey. Yeah,
I think that's the beautiful thing. Far and foremost is teaching the children according to the need and the pace. Because I say to the students, I say, I need to meet you where you are. I say, but one of the most challenging things, I cannot meet every one of you where you are. I have to have a margin because it's only one of me to all of you. You know, so that's the sad thing of being in the education system. Yeah. Because as much as I'm meeting them where they are, I'm also conscious that I cannot meet every one of them where they are. I could actually meet them on a general basis. Because something I said to my student yesterday, I said, do you understand what is meant by student-centered? They'll look at me. I said, I'm one of these teachers that teach you student-centered. I said, I see you guys have all this workbook. I can't function with a workbook. I said, workbook is program. You guys are program. I cannot function with this workbook. I said, for my lessons, you guys need to throw away the workbook.
You know what? It's so funny. Yeah, carry on. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
but
no, that's fine.
When you said throw away the workbook, I had to smirk because so I'm an English teacher. I'm an English qualified teacher. And it's funny because I got these grammar books and spelling books and it was, oh my God, it was awful. Like I tried to get my kids to do this. We're going to do this every week. And they were like, Mom, this is mind numbing. We can't do this. It's so boring. So I was like, oh God, but this is how you teach English, right? And this is what I've learned. This is how to do it. And you know what? One day, Debbie, I took all those grammar books and spelling books and I tracked them in the trash. And I thought, you know what? That's it. We're going to do it the way you want to do it. And I said, you know what? Which books do you like to read? So we got a book, and this was a game changer for me. So now the way I teach English is we learn solely through books, solely through fiction. So we'll read a book together. Every week we'll pick out grammar, we'll pick out spelling, we'll pick out we'll base our comprehension on this book that they enjoy reading, and that way they have just learned everything about they need to know for English. And it's just been, honestly, it's been a game changer. And from that, in fact, I've set up these book clubs for other homeschool students now. So I have about 5 classes a week that were, you know, other homeschool kids will come to my house and we will read together. We'll discuss a chapter each week. And it's lovely, and the kids enjoy it. And we'll pick out sort of, you know, certain, if anyone's sort of familiar with English and literary concepts, so we'll pick them out together. Or, you know, and the teacher will say, we know what this is. Why is it described like this? I'll say, oh, that's a simile, and this is what a simile is, you know. And they'll ask me, well, what does this word mean? Just through our reading of this book, you know. And it's wonderful. And I think this is what, you know, this is how teaching for English should be all about. It shouldn't be about regimented grammar books and regimented spelling tests. It's just, it's mind-numbing. It's boring. Even I find it boring. So why should I expect my children to enjoy it? So.
It is so true, because it's like teaching should be on a holistic basis, not fragmented. Because yesterday I was saying that to a group of students. I said, it doesn't matter if you're doing history A-level, sociology A-level, psychology, politics, all connect. And I said, I want you guys to connect it. Do not see it in isolation. I said, when you set it in isolation, it's going to be so boring and tiring. You've got to connect it.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say how you teach English. Because the teacher before me who taught this class of sociology, and I said to the students that I don't use the workbook. I'm not interested in the workbook. And the face dropped, right? Because you see, they've been so programmed to use this workbook. So they said to me, Miss, what do you want us to do? I said, I don't care. Just don't let me sit in my lesson. I don't want to see the workbook. I said, because I don't teach like this. So we were looking at the family, because I was doing the family with year 10. Because I teach year 10, and then I teach 12 and 13. Just one key stage 3.
Yeah.
3, I think, yeah. Anyway, I said to them, we were looking at the family, and they all come out with this. I said, okay, get your stuff out let's look at the family and let's go over the family. They all took this workbook. I said, what did I say about the workbook? I said, put it away. I don't want to see this workbook. And it's like, they start getting annoyed. I said, I don't want to see the workbook. I said, because what did the teacher taught you? Let's say family. I said, okay, let's go around the classroom and tell me about the family that you are from. Whether or not it's an independent family, which used to be known as lone family, or extended family, or nuclear family. And we went around the class, right? It was such a game changer for some of the students. We went around the class and I said, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. If you don't want to say the family you come from, that's okay, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. And they were also eager to talk about the family, right? And we had 2 sets of students who had the extended family, because grandma was living in the home. And grandma and granddad was living in the other home. And it was so interested. So after the session, they were all talking about the family. And I said to them, this is what you meant to be learning about the family.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, at the end of the session, I usually say to my students, I want you to tell me what you've learned from the lesson. I say it could be one word, it could be one sentence. And I said, I don't want to repeat. Everybody would be saying something different, right? I said, I just want you guys, I said, if you read it from the book, it's not in your head. It's got to be in your head. When we went around the class, right? One student said, what she really learned today was she understood what a nuclear family was. I didn't use textbook, there was no textbook. We just did the discussion.
Discussion-based learning is just
family.
It's excellent. And a lot of my sessions that I, when I teach other children, a lot of it's discussion-based, and even if it's your own children, read a book together and discuss what you've learned from it in the car, when you're washing up, discussions are so important. And another thing I have to add to that, homeschooling allows you to interact with all sorts of people, your child to interact with all sorts of different ages, different individuals. They're not it's not limiting to just children of their own age group as they interact in a classroom. So that's really important. And I think it's really important in order to prepare them for the real world, the external world, for them to be skilled in interacting with all types of individuals in various settings, like I said, not just people of their own age in a classroom setting. We'll go out, I'll get them to, if we'll stop for lunch at a cafe, I'll say, okay, order something, go and speak to the waiter or the waitress. And, I'll teach them to order their own food and look at the prices. And, all that is connected, like you said, a bit of maths here, a bit of sociology, about learning, these basic life skills that they're not necessarily going to get in a classroom. So, yeah, I definitely think one of the triumphs, for example, is the fact that my children are able to, interact with all types of people in all different types of settings. And I think that's really important. And that discussions are really, really important, and that enables them to learn about other cultures and appreciate other lifestyles, and know all about the beauty of different races and religions and cultures. That's so important. So that's definitely something I've always tried to instill in my children, and discussion is really good.
So therefore, the question I was going to ask you was, which you already answered.
I can go on.
You're saying that home education is far more beneficial than the traditional education in preparing children for the outside world.
Yeah, I can go on about that. So one of the points that I made was, it allows children to be more comfortable, more skilled in interacting with all types of individuals, races, religions, in different settings. The fact that, you're able to take them out to all these different places whenever you want and incorporate that in your learning, that, enables that to happen. And also life skills, so incorporating daily chores, at home, and making that a part of their learning experience. Things like taxes, and VAT. I remember when I think my daughter was about 8 years old, and she's sitting with my dad, and he's working out, so her granddad, and he's writing all these numbers down, and she's like, "Oh, granddad, what are you doing?" And it opened this little discussion. And before I knew it, he's writing out all these numbers, and he's telling her how to work out, and explain to her what VAT is and how to work out the taxes, and it's literally applied maths. And I'm like, she's 8 years old, but she's curious, and why not? It's never too young to learn about this. So these basic these skills that are, that we need to know as adults in the external world, she's able to know. And it was just out of her own curiosity and just having that chance to sit with her granddad while he's working all this stuff out for himself. And she was just curious, and that's enabled her to be, to hopefully be prepared for when she's an adult. But also something else we were discussing earlier was knowing that success isn't necessarily, measured by grades. I think that's a really important one. And understanding that, mastery in a skill is really important. Don't just, in school, learn one thing, a topic, and then move on to the next one. You may not have mastered that first topic before you're moving on to the next topic. So mastery, I think, is really, really important. Like I said, we spent weeks and weeks and weeks just learning about one thing until they felt that they'd learned enough and they understood it well for us to move on to something else. And I think that's a really important skill to have when, as you grow older, and when they become adults, that knowing that that grades aren't necessarily a measurement of success, but more so mastering, finding that mastery or in something before moving on to the next thing, and not rushing through one thing, and finding exactly what you enjoy and what you're good at and focus on that. That focused learning is really, really important. But also one more thing, working in school, I do feel like a lot of people have said this to me, that schools and the system sucks the creativity out of a lot of children. It really, really does. It does. And I think that, homeschooling really allows us to kind of build on the children's creativity. And I really try to incorporate all aspects of creativity in everything that we do. And sometimes we'll just spend days just drawing or painting or learning about, we learned how to crochet just by watching YouTube videos, for example, and we had the time to do that. Sometimes they'll literally just spend the whole day reading books because that's what they enjoy, and they learn so much from reading. And I had a friend who homeschooled for many years, and her children were avid readers, especially her eldest. She absolutely loved books, but because of financial difficulties, unfortunately she had to go to work, and she said, I'm not able to homeschool, so for 1 year I'm going to have to send my children to school. So in that year, she 6 months down the line, she said to me, she goes, I really regret sending them to school. She goes, my daughter doesn't even want to pick up a book anymore. I said, what? She said, can you believe it? She said, she doesn't have that time in school where she could just pick up a book. She didn't have that opportunity to just pick up a book whenever she wants and read it. And now it's so much about, trying to get through the day and doing X, Y, and Z, doing the maths. She's literally lost that passion for reading. And then that year she took them out again, and she's like, I'm having to kind of instill that love of learning in her again. It's like it sucked that passion, that creativity out of her, because the school was so regimented, and she didn't have that freedom to kind of do what she wanted to do and learn how she wanted to learn. So that was really sad. Yeah, but definitely that's one thing that I feel a child has sort of, can benefit from homeschooling.
Yeah. Thank you for that. You know what is interesting? What you say is so true in terms of creativity. Because when they're in primary school, they still have the creative edge. Once they transition into secondary school, as if secondary school, I believe, take it out of them. Because in secondary school, they're programmed to head down, and this is what you need to do. Yeah. You need to get the grade, you need to get the grade, and it's just drummed into them. So any creative skill they've got is lost because they have no time for that. And it is not even encouraged. Whereas in primary school, it's encouraged and they actually run with it. But in secondary school, that is completely lost. And I find it's quite sad. So one of the things I say to students is, I'm wanting them to use mind map, sketch map. That's where I'm trying to, get this creative aspect back. And I said to them, everything you're doing in my lesson, I want it to be creative. Because I said to them this morning, I said sociology is about society. And we are going to interact in and look how it operates inside society. I said, yes, you need to know the theories, but we're going to be doing a lot of discussion. And they look at me and say, but this was about the exam. I said, you would still be doing the exam. I said, even better. Right? Because they've been so programmed, there's this fear element that if you discuss, you lose the exam. And I think it's bad. And that's not the case.
Yeah. That's really sad.
You know, exactly.
There needs to be more experiential learning, and apply what you've learned and really, learn through the experience, through the discussion. I think that's a lot more memorable for a child as well. Sitting at a desk and just kind of drumming it all in, it's not really learning, is it? No. So yeah, homeschooling really allows you to kind of do that. But talking about
another question is, how do you in terms of exams, do you prepare your children for exams, or you just, what's the process in terms of the exam factors?
So when they get to secondary school, you're saying? So my daughter is 13. She's actually taking her first GCSE this summer, actually, for computer science. It's funny because we found a computer science teacher, a tutor, and I said to her, oh, somebody recommended this teacher. Is computer science something that would interest you? So obviously she had the choice whether she wanted to, explore it or not. And she says, so she goes, I let her read all the syllabus and everything. And I said, what do you think? And she said, it sounds really interesting, actually. I said, well, would you want to give it a go? And she said, okay. So she's been doing this program online she's in her second year now. And she's okay. She's quite enjoying it. She's getting a bit nervous now towards the exam. But I said to her, don't worry. I said, just take your time with it. Don't worry. It'll be absolutely fine. And she's been speaking to some people who are sort of experienced with computer science to sort of, get some reassurance from them. But when it's come to secondary, it's a bit more tricky. I have found it because it's the first time I'm sort of embarking on the whole secondary school journey with homeschooling. But I've spoken to a lot of parents who have taken their homeschool children through GCSEs. I was quite anxious, I have to be honest, because I wasn't sure how to go about it. I knew that my daughter wanted to do GCSEs and she wanted to, gain those qualifications. So for me, I've had to outsource a lot of subjects, because it's come to a point where, I can't, for me to find specialized tutors, I've had to outsource that. But with the whole thing about one of the questions you asked was that creativity. You talked about creativity as a secondary school child. As they get older, how do you kind of maintain that, perhaps? I don't like to confine my secondary school child to a desk still and a screen. I think it's still a lot of students, when they come towards their exams, it is very much just being in front of a screen, having a book in front of them, being at a desk. I think homeschooling allows them to have a lot more time, because they're then, you know, you have to remember that they're still not in a classroom with 30 children. So the quality of learning, even though she just gets 1 hour a week, for example, with, I don't know whether it's maths or computer science, that she's learning a lot in that hour. Okay, she's learning a lot in that hour. And because of that, she is able to have more time for the things that she does enjoy on the side, even as a student who is studying for her GCSEs. So she will still make time to explore museums and different places, to keep that sort of that curiosity and that creativity alive. She still takes like calligraphy classes she was doing, because that's something she enjoys, art. She loves calligraphy, so she was still doing that on the side. She actually taught children who are younger than her. So my daughter's 13. She set up a class to teach I think they were about 8-year-olds. She wanted to teach them calligraphy and pass in her school, so she was able to make time for that even during the week. And you know, just we're still kind of meeting people, older people, younger people, spending time with others, you know, during term time, having real discussions with real people who've experienced all types of lifestyles, jobs. She's into TED Talks, lots of reading, news. She started listening to LBC as an older child of mine. So yeah, I do feel that even though she's working towards exams, she's still somewhat able to make time for things that she enjoys. She started bullet journaling as well. So in her spare, she does. And when I look at children who are in secondary school, who are in school, from 9 to 3, they're in this, you know, this setup. You know, they're in the setup. They come home, they're tired, they want to unwind. They'll probably just watch some TV, maybe watch TV, or, you know, they're tired. They might have to do homework for school. And I just feel, I do feel sorry, because I just think, where do they actually get the time in the week to do what they really enjoy? And, you know, like I said, despite my daughter now working towards GCSEs, and it is a bit more work for her, it is more tough, she still has those pockets of time where she's able to, you know, to find to spend time on doing what she loves. Yeah, so I do think that if she was in school, perhaps she wouldn't have that time. So no, yeah,
because, you know, it would feel that, you know, the whole thing is she'll have to do all of this, because the fact is she's now 13 and she's doing one GCSE early. Right? Whereas, you know, if she's in school, she won't be given the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, of course, that's another thing. With if you do decide to homeschool through GCSEs, as a homeschooler, you're able to stagger those exams. So if it's a core subject, they recommend that you don't stagger it for more than 3 years. So if it's a core subject, the earliest you should take it is year 9. But still, you have 3 years. So, you know, so we've decided to spread those out. So she'll be taking one this year. I think she'll be taking a few next year, and then she'll leave a few for year 11. And that takes the pressure off a child. And it means that she's able to focus, is more focused for her. So I think that's one of definitely the pros of schooling your child through secondary as a homeschooler. Definitely.
Wow, that's beautiful, because it means that, you know, she would be able to, as I said, doing the GCSE early, and therefore it is staggered. So she don't have to do all 7 of them one.
Exactly. And you can decide, and she can decide for herself when she feels ready to take the GCSE as well. It may be that she's like, oh, you know what? I'm finding maths quite easy to understand. I'm actually quite good at it. You know, it may be one of her strengths. So she'll be like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe I could take this one early, but I'm not so confident with this subject, and I really want to leave that to the end. So she could make that decision for herself. And I can help facilitate that for her. So that's definitely something that's working quite well with us.
Right. Thank you. Another thing is, what do you think the challenges were or is in terms of homeschooling?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
What are the challenges?
The challenges. Okay, so I have 4 children. They are all different ages, different abilities, different key stages. So probably one of the most challenging things, especially now, I think I'm at my most difficult stage in my journey right now, because I have a 4-year-old. So I have a preschooler, I have a 7-year-old who's Key Stage 1, bordering Key Stage 2. Then I have a year, so she's 11, so she's just started Key Stage 3, and then I have a child who's just starting her GCSEs. So teaching multiple ages at once, that can be a challenge, I have to be honest. It can be quite tricky, but because the older children learn to become a lot more independent. So as long as they know what they have to do, they can get on with it. So that makes it a lot easier. And if you're organized enough, they know what they have to do. And, you know, so teaching multiple ages, it has been quite a challenge, depending how many children you have. The more you have, obviously, it's probably a bit more challenging. But like I said, I'm finding it quite difficult. So I think it's important to be organized. And while you're sort of spending time on one child, it may be that your older child can watch a younger child for you, spend time reading. So my 13-year-old could spend time reading to my 4-year-old while I give time to my 11-year-old and my 7-year-old, or however it may work. But one thing I have to be honest about with homeschooling, just watching my children bond, that's amazing. To be able to see them, you know, spend time together it's beautiful. And I just think to myself, I often think if they were in school, they wouldn't see each other all day. So that sibling bond, that sibling love, that's, you know, that I've seen sort of grow, it's beautiful. It is really nice. And, you know, they were able to work together and spend time with each other, and just, you find what works for you. So although it's challenging teaching multiple ages, you do find what works for you. And you know, it can be difficult. I'm not gonna lie, but you do find you find your flow. You do find your flow, and you find what works best for you. Another challenge would probably be sickness. So, you know, when I'm sick, or when somebody's sick, and you're unable to sort of drop them to their football classes, or, you know, read to them or help them with their work, you know, or a new baby, for instance. Every time I've had a new baby, that can sometimes set you back. You feel like it can set you back. And as a mum, you always have that mum guilt. But as a homeschool mum, you feel that guilt, that you're breaking your normal routine of home ed, and you feel like everything has to go on pause because you've had this new baby or you're sick. But I have learned to embrace it. So, you know, every time I've had a new baby, initially I thought, oh my God, what, you know, everything has to stop. She's going to be, you know, we're going to be lagging behind. This learning is going to stop. But you learn to embrace it, and you realize that being sick, okay, and asking your daughter or your son to, you know, to help out in the house because you're sick, for instance, you realize, or with the new baby, you understand that these times, okay, are actually an important part of learning. They're actually learning, and these are an important part of just life, and it's experiential learning. You know, having that new baby, watching mum change the nappy, or helping her, for instance, or just experiencing that, you know, my parents not well, I need to help out. Those sort of things that you're able to. So I've learned to embrace these little challenges that come along in our life, and accept that this is a part of life, and for them to be a part of that is actually beautiful. And it's actually, you know, they're learning a lot by being a part of this experience. So yeah, even though it might mean that your normal routine is rocked, there's a lot that they can learn from these little hiccups along the way, or these obstacles. One last challenge, I have to be honest. I have to be honest with this, and it's probably my mistake in not realizing this sooner. A lot of homeschool parents will find little respite because they feel like they're with their children 24/7. Okay, it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't have to be that way. And I think throughout the years, I've invested so much time in my kids and their education, because obviously it's very important. But I think along the way, I've almost forgotten about myself. And I think this can happen even if you're a mother generally and your children go to school. Yeah. You can easily forget yourself. And I think at times with being a homeschooler, I'm burnt out. But that's my fault. It's my fault because I haven't scheduled that time in for myself. And I think it's very, very important to schedule that time in for yourself, because if you make time for yourself, you're a better version of yourself for your children. And also making time for yourself, don't feel guilty about it, because I think children need to realize that, yeah, my mum's my mum, she's my teacher, she's my homeschool mum, but they also need to learn that mum needs time too, and that's okay. That's okay. And hopefully it'll teach them to appreciate you some more as well. So for mums who are new to homeschooling, you know, you're doing a wonderful job, but just make sure to remember yourself, okay? No matter how elaborate your routine is, please make time for yourself as well, okay? And schedule in that time, and your children will realize that this is also a part of our homeschool routine. This is mum's time, whether it's just curling up with a book, okay, for half an hour. They can read there with you as well, okay? This is quiet time, but you need that time for yourself, and that's really important. And also, you know, if you want them to learn something, I think it's important for you to set that example as well. Learning from example is so important. If you want them to love to read with them. Sit there with a book yourself every morning, you know. If you want them to have a particular routine in the morning, carry out that routine yourself as well. Ultimately, you are their role model. So, you know, if you set by example, I think that's so important to learn from the examples that you said. So set those examples. Yeah, so that's some of the challenge. They're definitely some of the challenges that I've just mentioned. But yeah,
thank you for that. It's interesting because when you talk about self-care, it's like across the board, especially as women, we are constantly feeling guilty for taking time off.
Yeah,
and that's something we need to start, you know, feeling that it is okay. We earn it, you know, so feeling that we own it and embrace it. Yeah. And even as teachers, that's another thing, because when you're in a school, you know, you feel obligated, you know, in terms of, you say, oh yes, I need to leave, but you feel that, oh my goodness, you found this bond with the students, and, you know, you don't feel that you're ready to leave. And all it was in terms of you putting yourself first.
Yeah.
We have to start putting ourselves first, because the more we actually take care of ourselves, it means that we'll be able to give much, much more, because we actually filled up.
Definitely.
And I think the more you're going to be able to give.
Definitely. And at the same time, you are teaching your children that it's to give back to your own soul, that it's important to take care of your own soul. So when they grow up, you know, they can set those boundaries as well, and know that it's not, there's no guilt in doing that. There shouldn't be any guilt in doing that. There's nothing wrong with putting, you know, setting boundaries to take care of your soul. So that's really important as well. So hopefully, you know, if you can establish that in your homeschool routine, don't feel guilty about it, because you're teaching them as well that it's okay. That it's okay to look after yourself, and that's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so very true. Thank you very much. Can you give 3 tips? Wow, those give us so much. That's so fantastic, because a lot of people out there thinking, oh, I want to do homeschooling, because I've got a colleague who wants to do homeschooling, but she's afraid and she's not too sure if she's doing it right. I said, there's no right or wrong. It's a matter of doing what feels good.
Definitely. And you might, you know, it's trial and error. You're going to chop and change as you go, and you'll find what suits your family, your lifestyle best. Right, number 1, and on that note, don't try to replicate school at home. Okay, I've tried it and it was a total failure. It's impossible. It's near impossible. Your home has so many other, you know, you have to do the chores. You have to cook. There's so many other things that are going on in our home that aren't going on in a school. Don't try to replicate school at home, because that's not what essentially you're trying to do. Okay, this is alternative education. You're trying to give them something better. Okay, better than school, and something that works with your lifestyle. It should be a part of your life. So yeah, that was number 1. Number 2, I'd say go at your child's pace. It's really, really, really important that you understand, you know, what works best for them and when. when to teach them what. It's really, really important. And enjoy those experiences together. There's no right or wrong. You do not have to rush through, you know, X, Y, and Z just because, you know, assessment criteria says so, just because, you know, just because curriculum says they need to know how to read at the age of 7. No, go at your child's pace, do what they are comfortable with, and enjoy those experiences together. And number 3, lastly, scheduling some me time. It's so important. Yeah. And this is my me time right now. I'm enjoying this. My children are downstairs. I've given them something to occupy themselves with, although it's bedtime for my younger ones. But, you know, yeah, it's really important. So don't forget about yourselves, although you want to do what's best for your children. And hopefully, you know, you'll have a beautiful journey with homeschooling, if that's what you're considering. If you're considering taking this this journey, embarking on this journey, it's really important to, you know, experience the learning together. Yeah, learn and enjoy it together with your children. I have learned so much from homeschooling my children, things that I had no idea about, you know. So so much about Japanese. I had no idea about Japan, you know, until my kids decided, you know what, we want to learn about Japan because it sounds so interesting. I was like, okay, then we'll learn about Japan. Where do we start? And it was just so fascinating. So enjoy the experience together, learn along with them. And yeah.
Yes, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. You've given us so many gems in that. You know,
I hope so. I hope everybody's benefited.
You've given so much, because it's like, you know, looking at the beauty of home education, which the school doesn't offer. That's why I said alternative. We need to look at the alternative to the traditional education. And the alternative has so much more to offer our children in terms of making them a holistic.
Yeah. And there's lots of perks. There's lots of perks. So we love visiting museums off peak when it's empty. You know, there's barely anyone there. It's beautiful.
Right, yes.
We go to the park and there's not that many children there. It's like, woo, you can do what you want. We can schedule in holidays, you know, off peak. They're a lot cheaper. So there's lots of perks. Enjoy it.
One, you know, one of the biggest one is this holiday off peak, because people like us in the education system, you could only go on holidays peak time, and we know the price is double.
That's it, without the worry that they're going to miss school. No, I'm actually off to Sweden next week with my kids. So, and I'm thankfully, I have the opportunity to go just for 3 days. But I thought, you know what, while we're there, they're going to be learning about Sweden. We're going to explore the area, and, you know, and if they were in school, I wouldn't even think twice, you know, about, you know, going. I wouldn't be able to. I probably, you know, I can't take them out of school, and now you have fines to pay and all sorts. So enjoy it, and just go for it, guys. Go for it.
And what are, you know, are there many legal aspects in terms of you homeschooling your children?
I believe no. So here in the UK, it's completely legal to homeschool. So your local LEA, if your child has been to school, I believe, then because they've already been on the register and you take them out of school, they will be aware of that. So I do know that some local education authorities they'll send an officer, or they'll ask an officer to contact you. They might ask you a few questions to see what sort of, you know, is your child being educated. And as long as you can provide some sort of evidence that you know you're home educating your child, then it's absolutely fine. I think most boroughs are quite supportive of it. So yeah, I think it's absolutely fine. And you know what? Since COVID, the homeschool community is growing. It really, really is. I think before COVID, a lot of people were unaware of homeschooling. And since then, it's a lot of people have decided to homeschool. So the community has definitely grown since COVID. So hopefully we'll be able to continue here. I do know that in some countries, homeschooling is illegal, unfortunately. Yeah. I'm not completely sure which ones, but I have heard that. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I'm not. I'm going to explore that
Yes, there are some countries that, there are some countries that where homeschooling is actually illegal. So I'm quite grateful that here in the UK, you know, we are able to homeschool. Yeah, so.
Right. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
For all of that. It's been fantastic. Thank you guys for tuning in or looking at it after the session, etc. So on a Friday, as I said, we're looking at homeschool education or homeschool or home education, because in America, I think it's called home education. And in the UK, it's called homeschool anyway, vice versa, whatever. So that's what we're going to be doing on a Friday.
Although home, I don't really like the term home, to be fair. Because when you say homeschooling, people assume that it's literally just at home, with it confined in the four walls of your home. And it's much more than that. I mean, you can learn wherever you want. Yeah.
It is interesting because I had someone came who was on the show, I think sometime last year, she was saying the same thing. She said, I don't call it homeschooling because she called it something else. Because she said, because we're so programmed, when you hear homeschooling, you're thinking, oh yes, this child is sitting at the table. Yeah, like a classroom.
Precisely, yeah.
That's where it goes wrong, right? Because people are putting the word homeschooling in that same way that they're thinking that that's the way it's got to be. So that's the program we have.
That's right, yeah.
That's why they're trying to mirror the school system.
Exactly. It's a big misconception. It really is. It's a big misconception. I think alternative education is probably a better word, better term to use.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I see you have your cat.
Oh yeah, he's a 6-month-old kitten. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And
thank you so much, Debbie.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. I would like to thank you for actually accepting the offer to come and talk to us about your journey.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Fantastic. It's good. And I really do hope that some parents or some carers who are thinking about it don't think for too long, because you could see the beauty of that. Because the children have so much more to gain than to lose. Because one of the most fantastic thing is the one-to-one and meeting them where they are. Because at school, we're not able to do that.
Yeah.
And on Saturday, we look at educators around the world. What are the journeys post-COVID? Because post-COVID, we just seem to be carrying on as business as normal, which is not right. Because business cannot be as normal when we just come out of a very, pandemic situation that students was at home. For some of them have been at home for 2 years. So that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Good night, good morning, good evening, where you are. Thank you for listening, and speak to you soon, people. Thank you very much.